Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Do you guys know what the most common beginner printer is on the market? It's the Ender 3. The Ender 3 has been out for so long. It's just the standard for a first beginner printer. It's the most affordable printer you can get on the market. Has a great build volume size, super easy to use. There's all kinds of upgrades and everything you can do to it. So today I thought this would be a great opportunity to take you guys all the way back to the beginning and do a complete beginner's guide to opening this box up, setting it up, downloading all the softwares, covering filaments, what is TPU, what is lightweight PLA, what is PETG, all this stuff. What does all this stuff mean? I'm going to cover all of this on this video and show you guys a complete beginner guide to 3D printing. Now this printer I got from Banggood. Banggood's an awesome site that you can get drones, you can get RC parts for, you can get printers, you can get filament, you get all kinds of stuff. They do have a US warehouse, so this was in their US warehouse. I got it in like a few days, shipped just as fast as Amazon. So definitely go check out Banggood for your guys' 3D printers or any RC parts you guys need. Now let's open this box up and get started. Okay, we have everything unboxed. I'm not going to go into super detail on how to assemble the entire thing because there is a pretty in-depth user manual that talks you through how to assemble everything. And there's other YouTube videos out there that show you how to do that. But it does come with all the tools that are required to assemble everything, so you don't need to purchase anything else. It does come with a little bit of PLA also. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this and get this thing ready to print. Once you get the printer all assembled and you get all the wires and everything hooked up, before you plug it in, make sure that you switch it to the voltage that's required in your location. So for the US, I'll switch this to 115. Okay, we have the printer all assembled and we have it on our table here. Make sure you have a nice strong place to put this. If it's on a wobbly table or something, it can translate into the print and cause like ringing in the print. So before we start printing, we have a couple adjustments to make. So see how the build plate is kind of wobbly? There's some rollers underneath that need to be adjusted to the right tension to make sure that this is secure, and make sure that these are also adjusted. And then there's also a belt tensioner. So there's a belt tensioner here on the front. Make sure that that belt's not too tight, but you don't want it too loose either, because that'll translate into the print. And then also up here. Okay, now with those adjustments made, we still need to level the bed, which I'm going to show that in just a minute. But first, we need a roll of filament and we need a file to put into the printer to make this printer work. So let's first talk about some filament. All right, as you guys can see, we have a lot of options when it comes to filament. There's a lot of different stuff here, so let me cover some of it for you. So now, the most basic thing that you can print with, the easiest thing to use, and if you guys are just starting out, just get a roll of PLA. That's the easiest thing to print with. The most similar thing to PLA is PETG or ABS. Now the difference between PETG and ABS is it's more heat resistant. The disadvantage to using ABS or PETG is it's a little bit harder to work with. When you're using a printer like we're using today, the Ender 3 version 2, it does not have any kind of enclosure built onto it, so it can cause it to warp a little bit. So to fix this, definitely recommend getting like a printer tent. What a tent does is it keeps the air around the print nice and warm, so that way the parts don't warp quite as much. Okay, so next from there, now we start to get into like lots of different materials. This is flexible material that I print tires out with. So this is TPU. I use also Verisure TPU by ColorFab. This is like a lightweight PLA that I used for like the Model C build for Eclipsing. Today I'm going to go ahead and try this new TPU that I just got from eSun. I actually picked this up from Hobby King, but I'm going to cover some in-depth on TPU because I'm getting a lot of people asking me about my TPU settings. So we're going to do TPU settings here later on in the video. Okay, another thing I want to talk about is lightweight PLA. So lightweight PLA is another thing that I use a whole bunch on my channel for building airplanes. Like I used it on the Eagle that I did. A bunch of other planes, a lot of planes for Eclipsing, I use lightweight PLA. We're going to turn the flow rates down, and we got to turn the temperature up to get the they get the foaming effect. Okay, so that covers all the filament. Now the first thing I'm gonna print for you guys on the Ender 3 is gonna be a part off of Thingiverse. So I'm just gonna use this green GTech filament, just regular PLA. And so the next thing we need to do is we need to get a file for our printer. Okay, now that we have the filament picked out that we're going to use for our part, we need to have a file to load into our printer. Now, when you're talking about 3D printing, there's two types of files. There's an STL file, which is basically, think of it as like a picture of a part. STL files can be purchased, can be designed. When I make STL files, I'm using usually Fusion 360. So like here's a build that I'm working on, an A321. Now I take the parts, I export them out as an STL file. You can also get STL files from Thingiverse, like I'm going to show you guys here in a second. STL file cannot be loaded into your printer. You cannot just put an STL file on your SD card and put it in your printer. G-code file is basically the part sliced. If you think of that 3D image and you just slice it into a whole bunch of slices and you think about how much infill you want and what temperature you're going to print, all that kind of stuff, that is what a G-code file is. Take the STL file, you put it into a software to make it ready for your printer. There are a few different softwares that will convert an STL file to a G-code file. The main ones are Cura, the Simplify 3D. That one does have a cost involved. And then there's also a Prusa slicer. So I only use Cura. That's the only thing I'm going to talk about in this video right now because it's free and I think it's the more commonly used software. So we're going to go ahead and get our laptop out and we're going to start working in Cura. I'm going to show you guys how to install it into your computer and set it up and how to get a part onto that slicer software to convert it to a G-code file. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go to ultimaker.com. I'm going to hover over the software tab and here's Ultimaker Cura. We can just go ahead and click on that. And then here you go, you can download it for free. 4.9 is the newest version, so I need to go ahead and download it anyways. I have 4.8 right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click download and you can select whether you're using a Windows or a Mac computer. So go ahead and click our operating system and click download. Okay, now that we have Cura downloaded, we're going to go ahead and add a new printer. And we're going to add a non-network printer. And we're doing a Creality 3D and it's going to be an Ender 3, Creality Ender 3 version 2. So we're going to go ahead and add that printer. Okay, now that we have Cura downloaded and our printer all set up, this is the software that we use to convert an STL file to a G-code file. Now to get an STL file, that is where you get that from like Planeprint or Eclipse or you design your own like in Fusion 360. For this example right now, what I'm going to show you guys how to do is I'm going to go to Thingiverse and I'm going to download a free STL file from Thingiverse, import that into my Cura software and print it out. So if you just go to thingiverse.com and you can just see here that just right here on the home page there's all kinds of things that you can look at. You can download any of these things for free and print all these out in whatever color filament you want. So I'm going to type in just gear here in the search menu. So I'm going to go ahead and print this gear out. I've never actually printed this out before. The cool thing about this is it prints all the parts connected together. So you don't have to like assemble any of it. It'll just print it all in one piece and then all the gears and everything will be locked in and you can just use it right off the build plate. So we're going to hit download all files. And so if you look in the summary section on Thingiverse, there'll usually be some parameters for like what settings to use for each part. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go to our downloads. See how it says it's an STL file. So back in Cura, we're going to go to this folder tab here on the left and click File. And we're going to go ahead and do the More Grip. So we're going to go ahead and open that. And that will import that right into our printer. So you can see there that because it's that color, it's actually not fitting on to the printer. So we're going to have to just go ahead and rotate this a little bit to make this fit. So now we can go to the Preview tab. Let me just go through and show you all the settings I did. So for quality, I did 1.6. Wall line, I did 3 walls. Top and bottom layer, I did 5 top layers, 5 bottom layers. And then infill, I have 20%. Set that to grid. Material, I have that set at 215 for the temperature. Speed, I have it at 100%, 50 on the wall speed. Initial layer is 20. And the travel enable retraction is set to on, and all these are the default settings. I set combing to all. There's a few different build plate adhesions: skirt, brim, raft, and none. Skirt is just a line all the way around the part, which you're gonna at minimum make sure you do that, just because it helps figure out if your bed is leveled before it starts printing the part. And it also helps to prime the nozzle before it starts to print. Okay, so now that we have our settings all dialed in, down the bottom corner there it says it's going to take 66 grams of PLA and it'd be about 9 hours and 13 minutes of time. So we can take our micro SD card that's came with the printer. So we'll just click save to removable drive there, click eject off of the SD card. Okay, now we have an SD card with our file of our pliers that we've converted with Cura, and we have our roll of filament. So let's head back to the printer and get this part printing out. Now the SD card just goes right here in the front, and our spool will just go right here on the top. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is level the bed. Now for the bed, we're gonna go ahead and peel off this protective coating. And we're going to select auto home. And then all the axes will home. Then we're going to go ahead and disable the stepper motors. So now we can move the bed and move the extruder around. So to do this, you just scroll these out and that will adjust all of the leveling points. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get it pretty close by eye, and then I'll use a piece of paper to show you guys how to adjust them. So once I got them close, I'm going to take a piece of paper and I just want to be able to put it right underneath the extruder, between the extruder and the build plate, and have just a little bit of resistance, but still be able to move it just like that. So there, that side is set, and just keep moving it all the way around until you get all of them to have this piece of paper be able to slide right between the nozzle and the build plate. So if it's a little too loose, just tighten up the screw a little bit. If it gets too tight, and then once you get it set on all your corners, your bed will be level. And then you just want to go around and double check it again after you do it once, just to make sure it's perfect. So like that side's a little tight. And you can check it in the middle too. Okay, so once we have the bed leveled, we're just going to go ahead and preheat PLA. So we'll select preheat. And then you can see here that the goes to 200 right there. So we're going to wait for that extruder to reach 200, and the bed is will preheat to 60. So we'll wait for that to preheat. Okay, now once that's preheated, we'll take our PLA. So we'll go ahead and cut the end off to make sure it's a nice clean end, just like that. Then we'll go ahead and insert that right here. And then there's that screw on the top there. Spin that and it'll feed it through there. Okay, now once we have that fed through there, we'll just keep spinning this to feed it in until it starts coming out the extruder. And you can see it there coming out of the extruder. So we'll keep feeding it through there a little ways. Okay, now once we have that all primed, we can just throw that away. And it's ready to print now. So this is a glass bed. Now for bed adhesion, if you just clean this really well, it's like some alcohol. I just spray alcohol on here, and then I just wipe it off, and that'll clean it pretty well. If you want a little bit better adhesion, you can use a little bit of hairspray. So my preferred method is to use like this hairspray. Works pretty well. There's no odor or anything like that. And you just spray like a light coat on there, and then that will help have good bed adhesion. And then the other option you can do is you can use glue sticks. So here's like a glue stick like that. You can just take glue stick, smear a little glue stick on there, and that'll help bed adhesion also. So like I said, I like to use the hairspray method. So for the part that we're going to print right now, we don't really have to worry too much about bed adhesion. Probably the hairspray is a little bit of an overkill. It's probably going to stick pretty well. But if you just clean it off really good, that would be good enough. But for the parts I print for airplanes and stuff, I usually just use hairspray most of the time. All right, cool. Now we'll just go into our menu here, and we'll go ahead and hit print, and it should start printing the part out. So we'll just hit print, and then there's the file right there. So that right there is the prime, and then it's going to go ahead and do that skirt that we selected. So it's going to do a line all the way around where the part's going to be at. So this is a good spot to check to make sure the bed is level. To make sure that this line goes all the way around and it sticks really well to the bed all the way. And you can adjust this as it's printing. So if you want to make it a little bit closer, you can just move these adjustments here and make it a little closer anywhere you want to. Looks like it's making a pretty good pass all the way around. And there, now it's going to start printing actually the part. So again, even though it printed just that outside layer pretty well, you do still want to keep an eye on it and make sure that the first layer prints out easily, because if the first layer has any problems, then you have to kind of restart the print, maybe adjust the bed a little bit or anything like that. But as long as the first layer comes out okay, then you should be fine. And because I did add that little bit of hairspray on there, it probably is helping a little bit with this first layer. But if you didn't do that, you might have some spots where it's peeling up or something, and then therefore you just make the bed a little closer to the extruder and just try it again. Okay, there's the first layer is all done, and it's all down and none of it peeled up, so we're good here. Now let's wait for about 9 hours and we'll let this thing get finished printing. Okay, so I left that printing overnight. Looks like it took about 8 hours and 12 minutes to print. The part looks really good. The quality came out really nice. Now, because of the way it printed, I should be able to just pull this off and it will just work freely. There's no assembly required. So let's go ahead and pull it off. Okay, well, it looks like it works really good. The print quality came out really well on the Ender 3. Now, that's if you want to do anything on Thingiverse, you can just do that same exact method and slice it into a G-code file, put it onto your printer, and you'll be good to go. Now, for what I do on my channel, we have to dive a little bit deeper into the settings, and we have to get some retraction settings set up correctly, do a couple test parts, so we can print out some thin wall airplane parts. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to change out the roll of PLA from this green color to this orange color, still just sticking with some regular PLA from Overture, and then we're going to dive more into our settings and get some retractions test set up, do a test part, and try to get some airplane parts printed out. So the first thing we're going to do is we need 2 different STL files. One of them comes from Thingiverse and another one comes from Planeprint.com. Let me show you guys how to download those. Go to Thingiverse.com and just type in here stringing test. So I'm just going to go with this small stringing test here, and then we can just go ahead and click download. Okay, the next test that we're going to want, we're going to go on Planeprint.com and we'll go to print tab and we'll scroll down and we're going to use this wing test download part. So we'll go ahead and import that STL file. We'll go to the preview tab so we can see what it looks like here. All right, now we're going to make a couple changes to this. So we want to have a 1 wall string test, and we want to have 0 top layers, and we'll make it have 3 bottom layers. And we want the Z seam to be on the back. So we're gonna go ahead to the wall tab and we're gonna select expose seam, and we're gonna use specific, and we're gonna use back. Now we're also gonna turn on up here, we can click travel lines. We're gonna turn the travel lines on. That will allow us to see where the travel lines are at. And so you can see how it actually moves through the surface there. We actually don't want to do that because we want to just do an actual stringing test. It just moves from point A to point B. So we're going to go ahead and go down to the travel tab, and we're going to turn combing off, and that will move the extruder just from one point to the other, and it won't actually wipe over any area or anything. So we'll just move from there to there. Okay, so our stock retraction settings are 5, 45 on the speed, and 0 prime. So we're gonna go ahead and test that out and see how it goes. All right, and then we'll just go throw this in the printer and see how it comes out. Okay, so after a bunch of testing here, we improved the stringing slightly. There still is a little bit of stringing, and if I want to eliminate this completely, I would turn the temperature down a little ways. I'm at 215, I would turn it down to maybe 200 or 190, and that would eliminate the stringing completely. But for what we do on my channel with 3D printing airplanes, we don't want to turn the temperature down too much because we want really good layer adhesion. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it with the last part that I had. I have 7.5 on the retraction and 35 millimeters per second on the retraction speed. So now I'm going to go ahead and load up the Planeprint test part, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that on and see how the test part comes out. Okay, now that we have the test part on there, the only thing we need to change in our settings is we need to go to the special modes and change it from normal to surface mode. And then I'm also going to locate the Z seam, so I'm going to go to the walls. I have it used as use specific back. I'm going to go ahead and change this to back right. Now I can go to the preview tab, and we'll go ahead and verify that this looks okay. And you can see there, because I have the travel lines on, that you can see where the extruder is going to be moving when it's not extruding any filament with those blue lines. I have the combing mode on travel tab, and I have avoid printed parts without traveling. It's not selected, but if you have it selected, it will have lines around the outside of the part like this. You make sure you don't have that set up like that, because what will happen is it'll have a really uneven surface on the outside of the part. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off, and then you'll see it'll go back to how it was. And that looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and throw that on the printer and see how it comes out. Alright, let's take a look at that part. Look how nice it came out. Because I did that stringing test, it actually worked really well. The Z seam is right here, and you can see there's no step extrusion next to the Z seam. It looks really, really good. So now we're going to go ahead and throw on an actual part from Planeprint. Print this wingtip out for the Savage Bobber. Printing out parts like this is what I mainly do with all my 3D printers. And I show you guys step by step on how to print out all these airplanes and how to assemble them. This is the Savage Bobber by Planeprint. This is fully 3D printed. You can print this out on one of these Ender 3s, and you can purchase STL files from planeprint.com. Take you guys out and show you guys how to fly them, get them all set up to fly. And it's just a really fun thing to do with the 3D printer. So make sure to check out my channel if this stuff interests you. Alright, so that part came out really good. So that's how you get your printer set up to print thin wall for just some regular PLA. Now we're going to switch out the roll, and we're going to go with some TPU. This is some eTPU 95A from eSun, and I actually purchased this from Hobby King. Hobby King is a great place to get other RC parts. If you guys need motors or PLA or printers or anything like that, they have all kinds of stuff like that. So make sure to check out Hobby King. There's a link in the description below to where you can purchase this TPU. Let's set this up and we'll start printing some TPU out. So we're gonna go ahead and import that into our slicer software. Go to the preview tab. Now we wanna make a couple adjustments. We wanna change this back to normal mode. It's in surface mode right now. So we're gonna do wall line count. We're gonna do 2 walls. We're gonna do 4 top and bottom layers, and we're gonna do 10% infill. And we'll do grid infill. We're going to turn our speeds down. I'm going to turn our infill to 20, our wall speeds to 20, and our top and bottom speeds to 20. So we're going to do 20 millimeters per second. Travel, we can leave that alone. And our initial layer, we're going to slow that down to 15. And we got 2 slow layers. So that'll print that really, really slow, but it should be pretty good. So on the first print, I had the temperature just a little bit too high. You can see on the bottom here that's kind of bubbled up. That's from the temperature being high. But you can just go right into your settings and just adjust the temperature right here on your display. So I just turn it down to 210, and then I let it print for a few passes to make sure that that temperature looked like it was okay. And then I went ahead and canceled the print. And then reprinted it, and then this is what came out with. A really nice quality print. That TPU works really good. I'll be using that on my next build to print out all the tires and all the TPU parts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful to get you guys started with 3D printing, and let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, and we'll see you guys in the next build.